the representative from the telescope because they haven't completed the fire agreement with the city yet.
Good way to snatch it.
No. That does add a complication. We good? We're good. I want to welcome everybody this evening to at 18:30 on the 18th of July, or July, I'll get it right, 19th of September to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Call this meeting to order. Please bow your heads and join me in prayer. Dear God, we pray that you will bless and guide us through this meeting. Help us to have productive discussions that will broaden our perspectives. Help us to resolve any disputes gracefully and find principles that we can agree upon. Help us to generate good plans that are practical, sustainable, and easily implementable. Guide us towards the best way to take action to accomplish our goals. In your name we pray. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. God bless Texas. All right, at this time, I'll move on to item 3 for citizens' comments. I will just, we have 2 public hearings tonight, so if you intend to speak in either of those public hearings concerning the legacy or development, the Legacy Park or Greenbriar Homes, those change of zoning, then I would encourage you to just wait until the public hearing. Otherwise, we're open to take any other citizen comments on any issues you want to address. And I'll just remind everybody, if it's not on the agenda per Texas law, we're unable to comment on it, but we can refer it to staff or refer it to a future agenda item. So, well, we're going to move right to the public hearing. So if you're going to speak at the public hearings, we can do that. If you need to leave, we can arrange that. All right. So, not having anybody who wants to make general comments, citizen comments, I'll close that portion. Move to item 4.1, just to consider the approval of minutes from the 15th of August. I'll entertain a motion. All right. Any comments? Any edits? All right. All in favor? Aye. Show that unanimous. I'm going to move on to public hearings. Since we have 2 public hearings, I'll start with 5.1. I'm going to open the public hearing at, help me out here, Shelley, 18:33 for item 5.1. which is a public hearing to receive public comments regarding request by Oak National Development LLC to change the existing planned development district on approximately 149.25 acres of land from the current zoning district classification of planned development district Triple Creek to a new planned development district Legacy Park, which contains 335 homes, 335 single-family residents and lots in a city park, and the Rockwall Central Appraisal District. Property ID numbers are 11447 and 11438. So the public hearing is open. Anybody wants to make comments on this, please approach. State your name and your address, and if you did not fill out a sheet, I ask you to please do that after you speak, so Shelley can properly record everybody's names and minutes. Ma'am.
Thank you. It works. Gina Manis, 107 Cheney Place, Mayor McLendon-Chisholm. We are very much against any homes that are built on less than 1 acre per the comprehensive plan. We live across the street, just over there, and I do not want more traffic. We do not want crowds at ball fields. I absolutely do not want any kind of fields, whether they be lacrosse, chess, baseball, soccer. We got a hot mic. I really been talking loud. So we just don't want any of that. We just encourage you to stick to the comprehensive plan as you have stated already. I understand the plan was brought back the last time from this area around McLendon-Chisholm and City Hall, and it had not changed. It is not taking the homes and adding in the property of the fields and saying, oh, it is come out to an average of 1 home per acre. No. If the lot size is anything under 1 acre for a home, absolutely not. That does not go by a comprehensive plan. So just please encourage you to hold that standard as you have so well done. And any developers need to go by that and abide by that, and don't come to us unless it's that. We don't want the traffic, we don't want the noise, we don't want people coming in from all areas, and I think I've made my point. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Wait, hang on a second. Get you a microphone. Maybe. There we go.
Anthony Crawford. I'm at 104 Lavender Place in Chisholm Crossing, right over across the street. My concern, again, is the same as the comprehensive plan would not be met by this development. The one reason that we moved out here was because of the comprehensive plan. We read it. We had our, we built on our lot, which is 1.5 acres for that reason. And we see developments by the same developer north of us that are 1 acre lots and west of us that are 1.5 acres. And then there's going to be another development right across the street, 1 acre lots. And so I don't understand the need to kind of cram some homes in on this much acreage. The roads can't handle it right now. It's 550 is bad enough. We've already had a couple of wrecks just the last couple of times. In fact, we were up here the last week at the council meeting. There was a wreck on 550. So my concern is the use of it, the number of traffic, the number of people that will be created there because of that and because of the traffic. The other thing is the ball fields are. Everybody I've talked to in my neighborhood that have young kids have all said they all play soccer somewhere else. They go to club places, and they have stated themselves, even with kids that play soccer, that they are against having ball fields, especially lighted ball fields. That it creates a lot of traffic again. I've had experience with ball fields in Dallas in my job, and there's a lot of trash. You can have someone say that they'll take care of it, but that usually falls through, and it turns into a fiasco. So, again, I don't think we can handle the traffic right now at this point in time, and I would very much like to see the comprehensive plan followed by the board. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else on this development? Okay, Mr. Webb?
One of the people on it. You hear me better now? Oh, I sound really good now. Okay. So, you know, we wanted our town to benefit from tax revenue that way. In McLendon-Chisholm, we've developed Kensington Park. We built all the homes in that subdivision. Additionally, Altura built homes in Sonoma Verde, Chisholm Crossing, and McLendon-Chisholm. Altura recently opened Heritage Estates on Pullen Road. We've purchased the property around City Hall, and we're proposing donating approximately 40 acres, valued at $2 million, to McLendon-Chisholm First City Park. We've met with the city and attempted to design a neighborhood and a park acceptable to the city, which complies with the spirit of the comprehensive plan. We've revised our concept plan for the subdivision 44 times in response to city input. The property is part of the Heritage Center on the comp plan, and among its anticipated uses are parks, trails, open green space, ponds, and creeks. All of these are included in our concept plan. Approximately half of the property would be parks, trails, open space, including almost 2 miles of trails that are designed to connect to future developments. We will plant over 700 trees on the lots and green space in the subdivision. Our concept is to donate the parkland to the city, develop a residential community that can pay for the park improvements. In order for the new neighborhood to be able to pay for the park, it's necessary to have density greater than 1 acre. The park would not impact the city budget. Park maintenance would be paid by local youth sports clubs using the park's playing fields. There'd be landscape berms separating the residential areas from the park. Primary to the entrance to the subdivision off of 550 would be a landscaped boulevard with upgraded signage. The property is served by High Point Water Supply, and they've confirmed that they have the capacity to serve the subdivision. We believe that Legacy Park would contribute to building a sense of community in our town by providing trails that allow neighbors to meet while exercising, a community pavilion, and open green space for city and community events, athletic fields, athletic courts, ponds for fishing that provide for our town's children and adults to play and not be on their phones. It's a revenue for friends, family, and neighbors to picnic and get to know each other, and we ask for your support.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Coker, I'm sorry, I apologize. I skipped over to you at the beginning. Anything you want to add?
No, sir.
Okay. I'll just remind everybody that before I close this public hearing that this is the public hearing and the commission will not take action until the next scheduled meeting in October. So anyone else that wants to, sir?
David Black at 1419 Sienna Lane. Really, it's what the first two people said, but I just note that we've heard this before. Mr. Webb has spoken eloquently, including his grandchildren and other things about how nice the parks are and the trails. But it is still not in the comprehensive plan, whether it's called Heritage Park or not, that you have residence lots less than 1 acre. There's a reason for that, for the community wants that. I just want hope that there's not going to be some trade between this great free park we're getting and then the traffic that's going to happen because of the park and because of the higher density homes. That's it.
Thank you, sir. One last time, anyone else? No, then I will close the public hearing at 6:45. Now I'll move on to agenda item 5.2, which is a second public hearing to receive public comment regarding a request by Greenbriar Homes to change the existing SF 2.5 single-family zoning district requiring a minimum of lot size of 2 1/2 acres of land and a general business GB zoning district on approximately 20 acres of land to a mixed-use planned development district, providing for 3 5-acre single-family residential lots and 1 5-acre lot for mini warehouse facility. This property generally is on the front of League Road, east of the intersection of League Road and State Highway 205, and the Rockwall Central Appraisal District property identification numbers are 11404, 11408, and 11417. Before I open the public hearing, I'm going to ask Mr. Coker, as the city planner, to provide us his report.
Mr. Chair and members of the commission and public, this is an application for a planned development district that will provide for 3 lots that are 5 acres or better. And right now they're shown on the concept plan as 5 acres. At 5 acres, they'll have to plat. At 5 acres and 1 foot, they don't have to plat. But in this case, they're going to be 5 acres exactly. The existing zoning allows for lot sizes of 2 1/2 acres for a home. And the general business district, which is the 205 side of the property, behind the existing businesses that are on 205, that will be an additional, or the request is for an additional 5-acre tract for a pretty intensively landscaped and visual barriers around it that are supposed to be compatible with the existing neighborhoods, and a good transition between the GB that we have along 205 today and the new single-family property that is going to be to the west of that off of Lee. So this is part of a larger tract, and the remainder of the tract has a home on it and has access both to League Road, a 70-foot wide access point, and then on 205, about a 1/4 mile of frontage that this same piece of property, the property owner has that fronts on 205. But as you said, Mr. Chair, this is a public hearing to see what the public thinks about this concept, and we haven't written the ordinance yet, and we haven't even made a recommendation to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Coker. I know that noted the developer has a representative here, so I'll give you an opportunity to.
You like to speak now?
Speak now, if you don't mind.
Hello, can you hear me? My name's Ryan Webb. I'm the owner of Greenbriar Homes. We do own the 20 acres off of League Road, as y'all just discussed, right behind the lots facing 205. We wanted to divide the land in 4 parcels, 5 acres each. And so the lot usage, as you've explained, lot 1, which is nearest to 205, would be the commercial lot. and we would use that with the zoning standards similar to the general business district. And then lots 2, 3, and 4 will be residential lots with zoning standards similar to the single-family 5-acre residential district. We believe by doing this planned developed district this way, it preserves the community's desired characteristics for new developments as stated in the community survey from the comprehensive plan. How so? The lots 2, 3, and 4 will keep the rural country feel that is desired so strongly by the citizens of the city, and by being large residential 5-acre lots. We're not asking for anything smaller. Lot 1 will be addressing what was considered a weakness of the city listed in the community survey by the lack of commercial land use and the diversity of land use. Lot 1 is also in line with the comprehensive plan's vision framework for fueling the economic engine by having commercial lots near 205 or on 205 and diversifying the tax base. One of the action goals of the comprehensive plan's plan development section was to bring in at least 10 new businesses by 2031, and Lot 1 would be bringing in one of those new businesses. So to sum the picture up of this development, we're wanting to add 3 what we would consider ranchette residential lots to keep in line with the rural country feel, and we're adding 1 new business to the community nearest the 205 that this land can be. It's about 200 feet off of those front lots, and so it's within what y'all deem the 205 corridor section, or at least most of that lot is. And so we feel that conforms to the comprehensive plan, and we're trying to do a mixed development this way, where we keep residential on the residential side and we keep commercial up in the front by 205, like everybody wants. As far as the mini storage, again, I would say the benefits, sorry if I call it mini storage instead of warehouses. The larger tax base from property appraisals will be higher thanks to this development for commercial use. There's no other self-storage facility within about 5 miles driving, and so we feel that's a service not being provided in McLendon-Chisholm. That's why we looked to put one in this community. We believe it helps the community's needs for storage for things that are not allowed in HOAs. All the communities, HOAs generally restrict RVs, trailers, boats, cars being parked out front. This gives an alternative option for those people who want to have boats and RVs, which I'm sure many of us want to have. Also is a safe, secure, inexpensive, and being this close, convenient option for storage of personal belongings for everybody moving in or out. Anybody who has a garage or an attic or a closet or an extra room full of stuff that they might want to have that space back, and they don't have to increase the size of their house to do so, they can use the storage facility. It will help with that. We believe it's a residential friendly business, as it doesn't produce any large noises. Sorry, it doesn't produce any large noises. It doesn't produce any smells. There's no frequent traffic. The average renter of a facility unit is usually visits once every 2 months. And so we feel that this is a commercial lot, and we're making that line between commercial and residential right behind 205. We will, like Mr. Coker said, have the screening wall fence. We will landscape the front as beautiful as we can, and we're going to put stone on the front of the front buildings. So we're trying to appease everybody in this, and we would like to have their comments on how else we can. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I'll invite anyone else from the public who wishes to make a comment.
Good evening. My name is Brent Cornish, and I live at 250 League Road, and my family also owns the house next door at 260 League Road. My road frontage is almost, but not quite, the same as Mr. Webb's. He's right across the street from me. I have no problem with the homes going in. I don't have a bit of problem with that at all. But I do have, I'd like to object to switching from a single family to a commercial property. Now, mini storages, and I'm not disputing what Mr. Webb is saying, but many storages around here have a habit of turning into an individual business for each garage or storage area, if you look at some of them on 276 and 205. So I'm asking you folks if you will please not allow the area, the first 5 acres that he's talking about, to go from single family to commercial. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Don't be afraid, I'm not going to read these 300 pages. My name is Jim Adcox. I live at 654 English Road, Rockwall, Texas. My 2 sons live at 212 and 280 Adcox Lane in McLendon-Chisholm, right off of League Road. I also own the corner of League and 205, which those 5 acres that we're discussing of the mini storage is exactly directly behind my property. I looked at the comprehensive plan, oh gosh, when we first bought, and I saw the word, country feel, green spaces, and restaurants, all the different uses, and mini storage fits nothing about living in the country. You don't go down a farm road and see a mini storage facility. We build a barn, we throw all our stuff in it. That's how it works in the country. So I'm adamantly opposed to a mini storage. You want to build some nice houses on 5-acre lots, fantastic. Mini storage, terrible. I just met with my architect Friday and had plans to build a restaurant, a little patio, and maybe a beauty salon and some stuff upstairs. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do now that if there's a mini storage there, nobody's going to want to sit on the patio and look at that. And there was also something in the comprehensive plan about lighting, how we don't want lighting pollution, and mini storage has a lot of lights in it. It's just cement. Going down League Road, it looks like you're in the country. It's bad enough that we've got these subdivisions surrounding us. Tate Farms will be sold here in the next 6 months, and that'll be a subdivision. That's exactly next door to where my 2 sons live. We don't need any more commercial mini storage facilities. I personally tried to purchase that acreage before it even went on the market. And I just wanted the acre behind there so I could have some green space and maybe host some community events. And they said, no, we'd rather sell 5 acres. And so I said, I'll buy the whole 5 acres behind there. I just need the green space. And they didn't take my offer, and I offered them exactly what they asked. So now somebody bought it and are advertising 5-acre lots, which it's not zoned for 5-acre lots yet. And then one sign has contract pending. How can there be a contract pending? It's not even approved. And who is that contract? Is that the mini storage facility? And who's going to own it and operate it? It just seems like it was backwards. But I'm willing to invest in this community. We're raising our kids and grandkids in this community. We don't need a mini storage facility. It's not country. It's not a green space. It's nothing that this comprehensive plan calls for. So I would urge you to please, keep our community feeling like it's country and not put a mini storage facility in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Any other? Ms. Moss.
My name is Judy Moss. I live at 525 League Road. I've lived there probably 30 years. I didn't object when the housing addition, Sonoma Verde, came over the hill and is encroaching upon my land. I live at the jog on League. I think that I can speak for our group that we are not an HOA, but we are our neighborhood, and we know each other. And when this first started, when Sonoma Verde first started, that strip down the left-hand side of the entry was supposed to be for commercial use. but somehow it's turned into residential. Well, we are a residential area. We don't want commercial coming in, because once that is built, I wouldn't want to build a house next to it. I don't care how many trees you put up. I don't care how many fences you put up. I wouldn't want to be next to a commercial area. None of you want that at the entrance to your residential, your HOA. I'm going to call ours an HOA. It's our country HOA. That's just the way we started. At one time, there was going to be a dollar store that wanted to come in to our community. But we didn't want that because it wasn't what we wanted for our community. We weren't that kind of community. Well, I think that this would also be something I don't want. We aren't that kind of a community where we live. I know we don't live in the big fancy houses. Well, some of us do, but you know, we just don't live like that. We live like the place everybody came to live. The wide open spaces, the country feel. We're going to lose all that. I just think that once one property goes in and it has that kind of commercial designation, that the next one would want to be a commercial designation. And I'm not here to argue with people. I'm sure that you're a lovely man. And I wish him all the luck in the world to find a place for his building. But you know, 205 is full of areas where that can be built. That it's already designated as commercial property. I would like to just say that I don't want to think I'm fighting a losing battle. I want to think I'm here to maintain the kind of place we all have lived in for so long, and that 3,500 people have come to live in the way we want to live. So I know y'all are here to make smart decisions, and I please ask you, don't do this. This is wrong. It's wrong for us. It would be wrong for your residential area where you lived. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Linda Fight. I live at 1150 Frontier Trail, which is right down the street from this property. And I agree with all my neighbors here that we moved here in 2004. We love the neighborhood, and I don't think that amenity storage fits in with our residential area. That property, I totally support the 5-acre homes. Frontier Meadows was made for a home environment, and we want to keep it that way. So I just want to give my support to everyone else that feels the same way I do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
James Adcox, 212 Adcox Lane. So to continue to echo what my neighbors are saying, we purchased our property back in 2016, built our home on our 11 acres. And really that was the point of coming out here, was to have the space to spread out, to have the freedom to raise our own cattle, to do different types of projects, to garden, to maintain the land, to make it better, to keep it preserved. There's so much development that constantly goes on around us. Part of my concern with having a commercial property like a mini storage facility is, just as Mr. Webb stated, you have RVs, you have boats, you have trailers, all these things that are going to a road that already has access issues, to put it nicely. On any given day, there can be 3 or 4 potential accidents just because the road access in that corner is so narrow that it's a hard time for just 2 passenger vehicles to get through there, let alone add a boat or a trailer or, you know, any sort of size of RVs that would be coming in and out of there. So to me, it just presents a hazard on top of not living up to the community standards that we all abide by. The 5-acre homes sounds lovely. You know, we went for property for the very same reason that those type of people would be looking to come out to the country and live that lifestyle. I have a hard time imagining that anyone would want to be neighbors with a mini storage facility, especially if there's 24/7 access to it. You know, people coming in the middle of the night to, you know, hook up their boats to go on a family vacation is nice, but do you really want to hear somebody hooking up a trailer in the middle of the night to get on the road at a decent time? Other than that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Kevin Fight. I live right down League Road. I've lived down League Road since the late 90s. I don't want to echo what everybody said. I think we've got our point across there. I think one thing we haven't said is when you drive through McLendon-Chisholm now, you know, there's not much there. You know, there was the old city hall there. We got the country store. Right now it's kind of basic and doesn't have anything going. Take it driving down like 276, right? You get into Blackland and you see all these trashy buildings on both sides of the road. It's not developed well. It looks like crap. I really don't want to see that coming in McLendon-Chisholm. I think it would be nice to eventually find a way to develop that that's got boutiques and things that people want to go to. You know, not driving in through really kind of the focal part of our town and what we see as mini storage. I mean, I'm pretty sure anybody who's been here a very long time, that's not something they want to see for the future of what we see when we go through town. So just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Okay. With that, I will close the public hearing at 7:07. I will note that we received on this notice for this zoning change, we mailed out 13 notices to 18 property owners. 10 were signed for by the property owners, and 5 were returned. All were opposed. And then there are 9 additional outside of the 200-foot notice areas that submitted, and they are also all opposed. So I'll just note that for the inclusion into the record. Since it is, again, public hearing, we won't, the commission will not take action on this until next meeting. All right. So with that, we're going to move on to the next item, which is item 6.1, discussion and action regarding the request for approval of an application of Aaron Parker, who's the owner applicant, for a final plat for a 1.5 acre tract of land to create a new building site. Rockwall County requires a minimum lot size of 1.5 of land for this on-site sanitary sewer system, and this is in the ETJ, which explains for the folks, that explains the language. So with that, I will ask Mr. Coker, would you please give us your staff report?
Yes, sir. This is the final plat. The commission and the council had previously approved a preliminary plat. Subject to that approval and the submittal of the final plat, I worked with Rockwall County because it's in the ETJ, and we have an interlocal agreement with Rockwall County that for every final plat that is submitted, I have to make sure that their environmental coordinator knows about it. And when he saw it, he responded back that he didn't want any part of the lake, there's a big pond on this property, to encroach onto the new 1.5 acres. And he requested that they dedicate sufficient right-of-way on their side for Stevens Road to be widened, which they have done both of those things. They redrew the plat so that it does not include any portion of the stock tank. It's a big pond. And they dedicated a little over 16 feet of width to the existing right-of-way on Stevens Road to make the width there on their side what the county required. With all of those things, this application complies with our requirements for a final plat and complies with the requirements of the county, and the staff's recommendation is for approval. Oh, one other thing, Mr. Chair. I always tell you on plats, you got three choices. You can approve it, you can approve it with conditions. If there are conditions, and you're going to see this a little bit later on, you have to specify what the conditions are and where they are in the subdivision regulations. Or you can recommend disapproval. And if you recommend disapproval, you have to specify why the request fails to comply with the regulations. And so with that, the staff's recommendation is approval. No conditions.
Thank you, sir. I'll now entertain a motion.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? I'll start down with you, Tom. Anything, sir? Just a reminder, it's an observation, not a question of we have an interlocal agreement with Rockwall County on the approval, and this is more just to allow everybody to understand the process. And this plat submission complies with all of the interlocal agreement considerations, as I understand it.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay, so thank you. So with that, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye. Show it unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item 6.2. Consider approval of preliminary plat for a little over 16 acres of land for the development of a 25-acre residential subdivision with 9 open space HOA lots submitted by Telus Mann LLC. The property is located in the intersection of, at the intersection of Van Road and FM 548 in Kaufman County. It's in McLendon-Chisholm, ETJ. The Kaufman County CAD PID or designator is for the property is 11030, 10984, and 11029. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Coker for your staff presentation.
Yes, sir. I trust that the commissioners had a chance to review my report, because this is a little complex. And so to start with, I'm going to say that you have 3 choices. At the end of the day, you can recommend approval, approval with conditions, or disapproval. And if you recommend disapproval, we have to be specific about why. My staff recommendation is disapproval because the local streets fail to comply with the subdivision regulations. Now, the subdivision regulations have 2 components, and they've been this way since 2007. There's the main body, and then there's an appendix. We use both of those when we're reviewing and making recommendations to the commission or the council. There's a disparity between the main body of the subdivision regulations, and that says that local streets require a 60-foot right-of-way, 60 feet of right-of-way. But when you get into the appendix, it's the second part of the subdivision regulations, and we use it every day. It says residential streets only need 50 feet of right-of-way. The applicant in this case has used for the residential components a 50-foot right-of-way for the residential component. A little bit further on in my recommendation, I talk about this roadway being a major focal point for transportation. It turns out that the major thoroughfare is not on this map, and it's not part of this request. And so I talked about a collector. I think that they've satisfied my concerns about a collector versus a non-collector. In the contents of the plat, they talk about residential streets, whether it's 50 feet of right-of-way or 60 feet of right-of-way, having 31 feet of pavement back of curb to back of curb. Curbs are roughly 6 inches on each side, so roughly 30 feet of paved surface upon which to drive and park. One of the things that is critical is that every roadway becomes a fire apparatus access route, a fire lane. And our code requires a minimum width of a fire lane to be 24 feet. Now, where a fire lane or a fire apparatus access road, if the fire apparatus access road is adjacent to a fire hydrant, then the code requires, the fire code requires it to be 26 feet of pavement. All that said, their application for both the main artery, which is the street we're talking about, and the residential streets have a minimum of driving surface of 30 feet, and on what we're calling the collector, which is not what is in front of you, they've got 37 or 38 feet of pavement for that use later on. So I've talked about collector because I was under the impression that what they're asking for today was the main artery that was going to provide access to the almost 25,000 trips a day when this subdivision is completely built. Not just this piece, but all of it. I mean, it's a big chunk of land accessed on 548, and that's going to be the main entrance. And so I've recommended disapproval because their local streets don't meet the requirements of 60 feet of right-of-way in the main portion of our subdivision regulations. I want the commission to know that if you decide, you can decide to go with 50 feet. And you can decide, which is what they've designed. And I want 60 feet. I think it helps us. It's much better for us. But I think because of the disparity that we have in our regulations, you have a choice. You can go with 60 feet, which is what I'm recommending. And you could actually, if you agreed with me, you could recommend approvals with a condition that they comply with the 60-foot right-of-way. You could do that rather than disapproval. And let me talk about what happens with either one of those. Approval with conditions or disapproval for failure to conform. We notify the applicant. They have an unlimited amount of time to rectify the situation. Whether it's approval with condition, and the condition is, give me 60 feet of right-of-way for a residential street, or disapproval because it doesn't give me 60 feet of right-of-way for a residential street. They can go redesign it and bring it back, giving us the 60 feet, and that can come back whenever they're ready. There's no time limit. And that same situation happens both at the Planning and Zoning Commission and at the City Council. So they have that opportunity. I know it's confusing. This is a state law that came in last legislative, not the current legislative session, but the last time. So it's important for you to evaluate. By and large, because they had an approved preliminary plat that came through. You saw it. Well, the new members, I don't think, saw it. But it came through and was approved by the City Council. They withdrew that because there was a new state law that came in, and as you see at the preamble of my report, right there, the note, it tells you that state law changed on September 1st and does not allow us to require that they comply with in this case, the Kaufman County Thoroughfare Plan. Our interlocal agreement with Kaufman County because in the ETJ in Kaufman County, we have an interlocal agreement, and it requires that any subdivisions in our ETJ in Kaufman County comply with the Kaufman County Thoroughfare Plan. And on their Thoroughfare Plan, man was the main artery. It's not the same anymore. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions before you get into the discussion.
Please identify yourself and all that good stuff. Thank you.
Sure. Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate you hearing this item again. My name is Justin Craig. I'm here representing the Telus Group on this plat that, a preliminary plat that we've resubmitted after the withdrawal that we requested after we became aware of the change in state law. So I think Mike did an excellent job of kind of giving an overview of where we're at. Previously, when we came in here, the one condition that was on the preliminary plat, and the plat hasn't changed since the last time it was submitted. The only thing that's changed, excuse me, is the state law. And the one condition that was on it was to abide by the Kaufman County Thoroughfare Plan. So we felt in reading that state law change, which it was pretty clear that it required any additional dedication of street right-of-way to be included in a CIP plan funded by that jurisdiction, that would allow us to remove that condition in this submittal and adhere directly to the McLendon-Chisholm Thoroughfare Plan. So thereby removing the one condition that was on there. So it made sense on this initial plat to establish that precedent going forward. So I do have some items that we provided to Mike subsequent to the publishing of the staff report on Friday that helped clarify a couple key points that I'd like to touch on real quick, if you don't mind.
And Commissioners, while Justin's handing that out, I did review those with the chairperson, and he does answer a lot of the questions that I had.
Was this provided to the city for record?
I provided it to Mike, I think, on Monday. And
Can
so
I ask you, can I impose on you to provide a copy to the city secretary? Sure. Thank you. So we all on the same sheet of music.
So you'll notice when you look at, there's a couple items in terms of right-of-way width that we're talking about, and we're talking right-of-way width and paving width. And so in terms of paving width, we are consistent with the development ordinance that you guys have. And so we're talking about kind of a realignment of Man Road, and that'll still be that center artery going up south to north through the project, and that'll be 37 feet in width of paving. So that's consistent with the paving width in the McLendon-Chisholm development ordinance. So there, we're adhering to that, even though the McLendon-Chisholm Thoroughfare Plan doesn't identify a collector there. But we agree that makes sense in that spot. One minor alteration is the trip total that Mike is quoting there of 26,000 units. That's assuming all of the full build out of the project will only be using that road as access. As you'll see through here, we have multiple points of access around the project to disperse that traffic. So we are incorporating the collector paving width, but the traffic will be split at the end of the day. There is that discrepancy that Mike said between the appendix and the main body of the ordinance, and the ordinance requires, with curbs, 27 feet in width of paving for internal roads. We are providing 31 feet of paving. By the way, those sections of the paving are included in the plat. So if you approve the plat, you are approving these paving widths that either meet or exceed the city's requirements. So in one portion of the ordinance, it says the minimum is a 50-foot wide right-of-way. So that's the, you know, outside that includes the parkway and everything. And one includes, that requires 60 foot. And so, you know, it's hard to really determine the intent of a 60 versus a 50. I would assume, and Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, that that's for bar ditches, that's for, you know, kind of other things that you might need in there. It's been my experience in other jurisdictions that your internal streets are typically 50-foot wide right-of-ways, and then, you know, your collectors are 60 foot. And so that's just consistent with the planning and the design that we've done all over, and the code allows for that, so we included that. Additionally, in the last review, that wasn't an issue raised, and so that's just been raised this go-around. So I think in terms of intent, we're meeting that. If there's an additional request for something that's different than what's in the ordinance, then I think that kind of goes back to the state law that's included in the package. But we're confident that, you know, what we've designed will work for the project and will be a really nice project at the end of the day. I don't know if you have any other questions that I can answer while I'm up here.
Yeah, just a second, sir. What I'm going to do for the commission is, we have a lot of issues we have to work through here. So before, I would prefer, before making a motion, that you each get to ask your questions and work your way through those issues. So I'm going to approach it that way if there's no objection. All right, so I'm going to start. If there's anybody ready. You are? Okay. Mr. Freeze.
Okay, so it's really for Mr. Coker. I'm trying to understand. So you have the main body of the ordinances that has state one requirement, the appendix has another. This is one case in which that's occurs. In the past, what stance has the city taken in regards to that? Has it always went with either saying that the appendix superseded the main body, or that the main body superseded the appendix? Because what I want to get into is, I like to have things be done justly, and that we look at how we apply the ordinances consistently.
I understand the question. And since I've been here, and I've been the city planner for McLendon-Chisholm since 2012, I have always recommended a local street comply with the first component in the subdivision regulations, the body, the 60 feet. But throughout our city, you're going to see lots of subdivisions, mostly in planned development districts, where the standards were modified using the 50 off of the appendix. And we are in the middle. I'm just about done rewriting the subdivision regulations, which you'll be seeing, but not before this case gets done, which will clarify. It'll make the same number in both places, the same number in both places.
And that number being 60.
My recommendation would be 60 if it's got bar ditches, and probably 53 if it's concrete with 31 feet of pavement, because really I use that a lot throughout North Texas. So when you see that, you'll probably see something that is different than both of these for curb and gutter streets versus streets that are bar ditch. And our comprehensive plan, the last go around, the current one says use the last thoroughfare plan exhibits for all of our streets. They are going to be baked into the subdivision regulations, so they'll become part of the ordinance rather than the recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Did I answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Anything else?
Keep going.
I'll keep going.
So, if I understood you correctly, the street question is no longer being considered a collector. And if the collector was the main reason and rationale for it being the 60-foot width.
It started out that, but the truth of the matter is, and I talked about it in here, the condition that I made, the recommendation for disapproval because it fails to have local streets with the required 60 feet of right-of-way. And I put the citation from the ordinance in my report so that you can go to that. But Justin, in his response, and you've got it there, he uses the other part, the 50-footer, and you can go there for that. And I think that causes a real problem for y'all. You know?
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Okay, I'll let somebody say.
You good? You're gonna come back to you? Okay. Tom, do you have any thoughts, sir? Okay, so here's my question. So as I look at the plat, Justin, I guess for you, but I'm going to ask you to approach because I think it'll be easier for me to display this. So as I look at this, yeah, that's this. So this is the green line is a collector.
We are designing the paving to be consistent with the collector.
Okay, for the green line, on the green line. Okay.
This is actually wider, since this is.
No, I'm with you. You don't have to. I think I figured in my mind. I think I've made it clear. It may help this question. So enter the development. This is separated wide. Coming across the aqueduct. Right, it's an aqueduct. Yeah. And then it goes up here to Street F. And is this Street F? Is that what's represented here? So, yeah, so what, now in my mind, here's where this is where you're in the 50-foot section, which is up in this area, which is, just looking at the map, is more residential to me. This is going to be more of the main thoroughfare traffic. So the only question I have is, what's the width of this? It's not annotated on here, so 60. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Does that answer your question? Yeah, I think to me that was the aha moment, because I appreciate that there is inconsistencies. The other question I was going to ask is, of course, is fire protection is the main concern, right? This is all, our concern is there's a school that's going to be built here, large number of homes. You can just picture the worst case scenario for moving emergency vehicles through there and have that additional 10 feet. To me, that's in talking to the fire chief, he's in agreement. You have you concluded an agreement with the city on fire protection yet?
We have not. So in terms of fire protection, being with the ETJ, within the city's ETJ, I think it does make sense to work with the city's fire department to provide fire safety for the project. Mm-hmm. I guess the other option is to work through the county. We just hadn't gotten there yet. Okay. And so we had included that sort of on the periphery of discussions with city council 8 months ago. But due to the fact that a lot of that stuff got held up with other discussions, we hadn't approached it since then.
So I guess my view as the commissioner is, in working with the city, we ask your on the roads that I'm going to use the word collector, right? The major thoroughfares that we just talked about, the green lines you have, and I recognize this is a preliminary plat, so things can change. But where those are major roads servicing the community, we would encourage you to have the 60-foot right away, and that way I know the fire chief feels much more comfortable that way, moving emergency vehicles through that area. On the residential areas, I'm more comfortable personally with 50 feet because they're obviously less traveled local residents. It's and that would be your decision, you know, as a developer. So that's share with my fellow commissioners. That's my viewpoint. So, any other comments you want to add?
No, except to add that those green lines in there are consistent with what you're requesting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also what's baked into that preliminary plat. We intend here in the near future to bring the next iteration of the kind of the second part of what we're going to be moving forward with, and it'll be consistent with that as well. So,
and I'll just remind the commission that the reason this is it's in a I don't want to say abnormal. That's the wrong word. It's not a normal plat presentation for us due to the size of the development, and it has to do, as I understand it, with your need to get it platted to be able to start working with the city of Dallas relative to bridging the aquifer.
That's correct. Yeah, we've been working with their engineering department, but we need to finalize this in order to finalize that.
Okay, thank you.
One question, if I can.
Yes, sir.
Justin, for clarity, I think you said that the green lines are the 60 foot. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Mr. Coker, any other comments?
Just one comment, Mr. Chair. I just got an email from Chief Simmons saying that he has talked to Justin, and they're going to have an initial meeting next week to start working out the fire protection issues.
Perfect. All right. Any other thoughts? Now I'll entertain a motion. Sir, you can sit down or stand up. It's your choice.
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the preliminary plat as presented without conditions. And seconded. So I'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Show that unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for helping us work through that.
I would say that the final plat would be nice to see NGCs coming out.
Yeah.
Well, something that's not a regulatory condition that could be applied, it would still be nice to have him and Chief Simmons come to a final plan for the final plat. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I figured.
All right. Move on to item 6.3, and this is we had in the packet tonight a presentation for chapter 212 out of the Texas Code concerning the use of moratoriums. So what I'll do is, the intention here is to just open this up for discussion. There's no action here. I'm going to read a statement and then we can discuss from there. Due to the impacts of the RCH imposed Stage 5 emergency water shortages and the resulting water restrictions, there have been a call by a few in our local residents to implement a building moratorium. The purpose of this agenda item is to not act on any such request, but to discuss the terms and conditions under which a moratorium should be considered and a process for implementing one. As we discussed last month, emotions are running high, and we should be very careful in any deliberation for imposing a moratorium because of the significant impact it would have on our city. As we discussed last meeting, we have several tools in our toolbox to rigorously review any proposed development to ensure any proposal brought forward is fully vetted. Overall, we remind ourselves McLendon-Chisholm is a Type A general law city and therefore must be compliant with Texas State Municipal Code Chapter 212, Local Government Code, Subchapter E for implementing a moratorium on property development. In the packet is Chapter 122, Subchapter E, and it was provided for your review. A moratorium is one way a city can address specific municipal shortfalls created by development. Moratoriums can be used to allow a city to gain some breathing room to ensure shortfalls while concurrent with review, response, and updated land use regulations. The justification for a moratorium must be based on a shortage of essential public facilities. The city must provide written findings explaining the shortage and explaining its impact. If the municipality adopts a moratorium on property development, it must be clearly stated and the evidence must be proven to demonstrate the need to extend beyond established capabilities of the existing essential public facilities and how this issue will negatively impact the city's ability to provide those services. And if a moratorium is not imposed, how overcapacity would be detrimental to the health, safety, welfare of the residents of the municipality. The city must also demonstrate that an alternative methods do not alleviate the problems and that there are underlying motivation for imposing the moratorium. Geographic boundaries must be established for where the moratorium would be applied and how the shortfalls that are the basis for establishing a moratorium can be resolved. A key point in the code is that out of apparent concern that the cities may overreach in their use of the moratorium, the Texas legislature has heavily regulated the use of building moratoriums as noted in Chapter 212. For example, the legislature has imposed stringent notice and hearing requirements on cities that seek to impose moratorium on development that include public hearings by the Planning and Zoning and City Council. Before the city can impose a moratorium on public development, it must conduct public hearings to provide the residents the opportunity and the affected parties the opportunity to be heard. The city must publish notice of the City Council hearings in newspapers of general circulation. Beginning on the fifth day after a published notice, a temporary moratorium can be implemented, and during a period of a temporary moratorium, the city may stop accepting permits, authorizations, and approvals necessary for subdivision, development, site planning, or construction on real property to which the moratorium applies. The public hearing is used to allow the city citizen feedback before the council takes action. The code clearly implies that a municipality should take on a moratorium as a last resort after all other remedies have been exhausted. By law, council must act within 12 days after the date of the first public hearing to make a final determination on imposing a moratorium. Council must pass on a moratorium must pass an ordinance to adopt a moratorium. The ordinance must be given 2 readings by council. The readings must be separated by at least 4 days. If a municipality fails to adopt the ordinance imposing the moratorium within the periods described by the subsection, an ordinance imposing a moratorium may not be adopted, and the temporary moratorium imposed under subsection C expires. A moratorium expires 120 days after implementation unless an extension is made by City Council that follows the same pathway as used to create the original moratorium. Now, with that said, I'm going to open discussions to the Commission and allow Mr. Coker to answer any questions. So long statement, and I apologize for that, but it's complicated. The short answer is a moratorium should be taken as a last resort, that the city has to have control of the things that go into affecting the negativity that are negatively affected on growth. Thank you. And in our case, candidly, in our case with the existing water situation, it doesn't apply because we don't control water. That's done by an outside organization, in this case RCH. So RCH would have to be the one to impose its own internal control mechanisms as a standalone entity. If we own the water, then it would be we could undertake a moratorium if the water infrastructure wasn't pacing. And I went back and looked in the state records, and there are 4 examples of moratoriums that have been undertaken recently, or I'm sorry, 3 examples of moratoriums that have been undertaken recently. Granbury imparted a 120-day moratorium back in 2020, and it was based on wastewater treatment and their inability to maintain pace with development. Dripping Springs imposed a moratorium in 2021, again, essentially around the same area. It was around wastewater. And then finally, Magnolia, down near Houston, imposed in 2022 a 120-day moratorium, again, for predominantly around wastewater, but it also included the city-owned water infrastructure. So, that said, I just wanted to make sure the commission was fully aware of state law and how that applies in this case. Because I know there's a lot of discussions about the mechanisms we have to control development or ensure smart development in our community, and this is just a continuation of that discussion.
Chairman, so even just setting this aside, this is a general question, setting the water circumstances that you mentioned. Are there circumstances in the law, or are there items in the law that allow for a moratorium over something that the city does not control? I ask that because it seems a unique situation of a city. If we're presented with a case where best interest is to consider a moratorium, even if it's something outside of control, are there any allowances in the law that we know of?
Mike, do you want to tackle that before I?
Yeah, the city attorney says that if we do not have regulatory control of the item that you're considering for a moratorium, then you may not establish a moratorium.
Thank you, Mr. Coker.
Okay, we'll move on to the final item, which I will.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Let me talk about moratorium for just a second. I've been doing work for cities since I was a kid. I mean, and I'm not anymore. So, and I've worked in Colorado and Texas. In all of that 45 years, I've only been involved with 2 moratoriums. One in Lubbock, Texas, and one in Lakewood, Colorado. And both of them had to do with the inability of the municipality to provide water to their system. But in both of those cases, they were the water company, so they had control of it. I have to be honest with you. I was the building official in both of those places, and it was hard on us. It was hard on the staff, it was hard on the developers, and it was hard on the city generally, because once they adopted it, we quit taking applications, but we didn't stop construction that was going on out there. I mean, so there's a lot of negatives to go with moratorium, and just like the legislature has recommended to us and the chairperson has specified, it should only be used as a last resort for something that we do regulate. I just wanted to make sure that you understand my position is we got to try and solve this some other way if we can.
Thank you, sir. All right, with that, I'll move on to agenda item 6.4, consideration for future agenda items and guidance for staff. I'll just report back. I'm working with the city attorney to have a memorandum on control mechanisms in ETJ that we discussed. And he's taken that on. Any other comments? And Mr. Coker, you're going to bring back the code of ordinance changes you suggest we endorse, review and endorse.
Yes, sir. As soon as I get it finalized and I get the city attorney's comments about my recommendation and the city engineer's comments, this is on subdivisions. Then I'll be bringing that to the commission and probably a workshop because there's a lot of moving parts. And we'll walk through it before I ask you to do anything with it.
All right, very good. And then lastly, I've requested for the commission, I've had a discussion to ask the mayor to have a joint working session with city council so that, you know, we understand their concerns, what they're looking for as we're presenting the presentation to them for any like we did. We'll make two recommendations tonight, which I don't think are controversial, but should move forward. And then finally, on the next meeting, our regularly scheduled meeting would be October 17th. I will be in South Carolina at a leadership day for my alma mater, the Citadel in Charleston. So while the commission can continue its work in my absence, I just wanted to let you have the opportunity, if you wanted to see if we could make that meeting the 24th, when I would do that. Is that a council? It is a council meeting, isn't it? Is there an alternative? Can we do it the following week on the 31st? That would be Halloween, right? I'm sorry. I'll be back on the 20th, so we'd have to do it on a non-Tuesday, perhaps the 26th. We could do that Thursday. I'm going to leave. I would prefer not to let my calendar drive this. I want the commission to make that decision. Yeah. 25th. 25th. So I think we've agreed. 25th we'll move, the next session will be on the 25th of October. We have a lot coming back. Right? Yeah, she's nodding. She would, but believe me, I'd get the head nod if it wasn't. She's just going to have to prepare 2 agendas in 1 week. Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Coker, any last thoughts, comments? All right. Well, thank you. All right. With that, I'll move on to the final agenda item and call for a motion to adjourn. So moved. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks. Thank you.
If he had that picture to begin with,